Welcome back. This is GSUITE video 4, and this is one of the most crucial videos you will watch. Migration is the most crucial thing coming to GSUITE administration, and we talked about basics and what we need and how we need and what needs to be done and the way strategies have to be performed and how the mail routing appears. But that is all. The setup that we have done so far concerns only what will happen in the future. What about the mail you already got in your legacy server? And I'm talking about not just the mail. What about your entire data? So that has to be migrated. That is of utmost importance for any successful migration, of a complete migration to GSUITE. So we need to take care of that old data as well. Now, before you know what I'm talking about, the data needs to be moved from GSUITE. Sorry, my bad. Data does not move from GSUITE. It has to be moved from legacy server to GSUITE. This has some data that has to be moved. First, we have to know what data that is. Now, this can be obvious, cannot be obvious. The data I'm talking about is mail, calendar. These are major data, and a lot of XYZ files. So why I'm mentioning this is because you have to know what the type of data it is that you're moving. According to that, we will take our actions. Once we know as a GSUITE administrator what type of data it is, next we need to figure out whose data we are moving. We have to answer 3 questions. Whose data? What data? And lastly, how? The strategy you are going to so the strategy that you're going to use is what you have to figure out as well. Once you figure these out, whose is of course just list of users, whoever they are. This is just a list of users. And what data is referring to this itself, what kind of data we are moving. Maybe you don't need all of it. It depends on the client, on the organization. So that is important. What data are we migrating? And how means the strategy you are going to use to find out how this can be done efficiently. This kind of data is not overlapped or anything, and the users, the employees are not disturbed. Once you do how, you directly move to the tools provided by GSUITE. And there are some third-party tools that you can use and figure out that this is the tool I'm going to use to move this. Some examples or major use ones are the GSUITE migration for Microsoft Exchange, Outlook or IBM Notes, the admin console's data migration service, very crucial, and some third-party tools might also play a role. Now, migration, in generally speaking, is of two types. The strategy you are going to use is going to be of 2 types. It could be server-side migration or client-side migration. Now, what are these? In most cases, this is the one you're going to use, and this is highly unlikely, but this does also happen, and this is also not preferred way of doing that. Saying that server side is when there is one person who is controlling, not one person, one place where the migration is being controlled from. One team is controlling this. IT administrators, if you want to say it. So they are controlling the entire site migration, and they have complete access to everything, and they are doing it. So that is the server side migration, and this is the preferred way of doing so. But there is an alternative. This is called the client side migration. Here, why would you do this? This is the one we have been talking about all this time. So what is this? This is when the data isn't really on one place. It's not in a server. It's on, well, one appropriate word would be local system. And that's not one system, it's many systems. So what does that do? If you didn't get it, let me say that again. Now I have a Gmail, I'm a user, and my mails are on the server, fine. My calendar is on server, fine. But the code I've been writing is not on the server. Maybe it's on the GitHub, that's not a thing, but I'm just giving you an example. It's on my local system. And for that organization, the files on the local system for each user or for a group of users is crucial. This is not something that is that can be left out or left behind. It is the part of their local server and their local machines. So when you're doing this isn't, the local files are not really considered. But can we as administrator do that? No. It's the local file. They have their computer access, their passwords. They know which are important, which are not important. So client does that for you. That's why it's called client-side migration, because they are the one picking up the files and transferring them. But this has an obvious issues. You need to train people at least a little to migrate all that kind of data, and how it is done, and what can be done, which tools to use. Little training is required. That it's annoying. And when people are responsible for this, the management does get slow, right? It will slow down, and we don't want that to happen, but sometimes it's just inevitable and has to be done. Now, once the migration is done, you have your go live phase, basically it's called. It means your G Suite is now working and is active. So if that is the case, that begs the question, how much data do we need, does an administrator need to transfer to go live to that phase that people actively start using it, users start using G Suite? How much data do we need? Well, if you think about it, you would have like no data option, or some data option, or all data option. This is definitely not right, because if you just wait for everything to be migrated, it will take too much time, and deployment, all of the deployment things will not happen, and it will just be, well, a hassle. So you don't do that, never. These two, however, depends on your scenarios. You can go greenfield mode, it's called. With no data, you just start using it, and people go with only read-only access to the legacy server, and everything they are doing it on the G Suite. So that is also okay. And some data is, as Google recommends, 90 plus calendar Gmail data days. 90 days. Plus is in the sense 90 days itself. So this much data you migrate for all of the users of 90 plus days. And so in that case, they would have the data they required, but the data you are migrating after that is just something that can happen in the background. They won't be worried about it. So once you do this with this much data, this is the best choice, and the one you should really prefer. So yeah, move some data, 90 plus days of data, and then you can go live. Among all the tools, let me take the example of G Suite migration for Microsoft Exchange. This is the most common migration these days, And let me take this as an example. So what do you do when you have to do this from Microsoft Exchange? You have to migrate data. First of all, you go to your domain settings, your Google Admin Console. In the security section, make sure you enable API access, because that is what is going to transfer the data, interact with the data. So enable the IP address access, and then go to, I do not have a picture of it here, go to the Google, I will leave a link in the description. Go to Google Developer Console and that create a project and authorize it here in the security manage API client access. Authorize it here, authorize that project here and the APIs. Once you do that, create a text file of .csv format and create the list of each user, or all of the users, whatever who you want to migrate their data, right? So at first the format is each line should contain only one user and separated by comma. First their old domain email address and second a new email address, right? What you are transferring to. So that's how you want to create it. Create the list of all the users in this format and you should be good to go. So just clarifying again, so this is one user. I'm looking at the last line. Let me use a pen. So this is their old domain email address and this is their GSUITE. Sorry, my wording is wrong. Their old server address and this is their new server address, that is GSUITE. So this is the same person, same user, and this is how you're going to write it down. Save this file. Let's go to the migration tool itself. Here, this is the first page. Can I? Let me show it clearly. So this is the step one. Here your server type is Exchange, you know that. Specify the Exchange detail, its IP address and the username, whatever it is. Let's go to next step. Step 2 is the GSUITE domain name, whatever it is, and service account credential file. This is the file that you create from the service account with all the access you need in the project that you created in the Google Developer Console that I just mentioned. In that project, create a service account and download that file, its key, and that is what it is directing it to. The admin user is whatever your admin user is. This is probably, if you are the GSUITE administrator, your email